So this is just a video to show you the basics of caulking. Uh, when you buy your tube, whatever you're doing, you'll pick the right caulk. You get your caulk gun, and every caulk gun has a cutter. You put your tube in there. They say about 45 degrees, so there's 90, and there's 0, and then 45 is in about in the middle, and then you just pull it along and slice. Oh, we got stuck in there, which always happens. And in this case, that hole that I made is about good for what I'm going to be doing later. The next step is to take a long nail or something that if your caulk gun does not have one of these, most of them do, they tuck away nicely. You take this and you poke it down through the seal, which is at this level, and so that rod will go all the way in. All you need to do is go just a little bit past. You can make 1 or 2 holes, and then it sort of splits open and the caulk starts coming out. I don't want to open this tube right now because I have no need, but I have this old thing. You can see this one is almost done. The plastic plunger is all the way up to here. I've got this much left. But surprisingly, this cheap caulk, well, it's not that cheap. It's actually decent caulk. It's still wet, and I put this in here a long time ago. I just checked it, and you see I used the wrong kind of bolt or screw for this. It left a little rust. Or maybe that was the previous nail that I had stuck in there. I'm always using something different. And so then you just take your rod in there, and then of course, what's all this? Your poker is all gooey, so it's important to keep that clean. It's also important to keep your plunger clean. This part here, the caulk tends to come around, and especially when you're at the end, and it can get all messy in there, and it can come out full of caulk. So it's important to keep this clean to make it work right. And one of the things that people want to know is how to remove old caulk. And I have this old thing from my grandfather, which is the old way they used to use razor scrapers. Nowadays they're more like this. Even this one is old, but you just slide a single-edged razor blade in there, and here it has a screw that you put. It's kind of, not the best, but it's very sturdy, and it's time tested, and then it's a very easy way to get caulk off your whatever you're doing. And then there's another cool little tool, which I never really use very much because I didn't want to keep up with a whole bunch of tools, which is a caulk smoother. If you're caulking in the corner of a bathroom or whatever, you come along and it leaves a nice it does leave a nice surface. Sometimes you want to go back. We would just sometimes wet our finger and go back over the bead of caulk just to give it a glossy, smooth finish, let it dry like that. We would never use a terry cloth like this. However, what we prefer is smooth cotton or anything that doesn't have any kind of texture, because it leaves the caulk nice and smooth and paintable. And especially exterior, it's much better to have a smooth surface, so the ice and the water and the ice cannot sort of damage your caulk. Finally, the fun part, I want to show you what you do if you don't have a caulk gun. You don't need a caulk gun to get the caulk out of here. All you need is a stick. And in this case, I'm going to use a hammer. And this is the plunger. Here's my ratcheting system is nothing but my elbow, literally elbow grease. And let's see, I haven't actually tried this. See, squeeze a little. Yep, there it comes. Of course, that's going to be hard to control. You might take your finger and do a little and do a little more. And, it's obviously not the best to save $6 on a cheap caulk gun or $20 or $30 on a good caulk gun, but it does work. And there's one last thing which shows you how cheap I am. I don't really have a nail handy, but let's say this is all dried up. You can't release it with the poker, but you've got enough caulk in here. You don't want to waste it, right? So what I do is I take a nail and a hammer, and I whack it, and I put a hole in the side, and then I do the same thing with a caulk gun or with a plunger, and the caulk will squirt out of here, and it's exactly the same thing. You can just take your finger, and at least you don't throw perfectly good caulk into into a landfill. Okay, that's it.